I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So I don't want to hold you guys too long. But sweet. So if you weren't able to make it to the call last week, at the end of it, we did like a Q&A session, and I really just wanted to ask everybody, what they were interested in seeing, what kind of content they wanted to see more of, what kind of information they wanted to see. And a lot of people agreed that they really wanted to understand how to calculate macros and really building a meal plan. So that's exactly what we're going to go over today. First of all, I wanted to cover the basics. What is a macronutrient? So macronutrients are broken down into carbs, proteins, and fats, and each one of these have a different role to the body. Carbs are going to be our main source of energy. This is exactly what provides fuel for activities and exercise. You can think of this as, the gas that you put in your car to drive. So without enough carbs, you can feel really drained of energy. You can't get as much output in the gym. It can really affect just your overall activity level. Protein, as everybody knows, we harp on this a lot. Protein is essential for building muscle, repairing tissue, and with recovery, and not just muscle tissue, but also organs. So this is huge. No matter if you're, building muscle, losing fat, whatever your goal may be, protein should be one of your main priorities. And I harp on everybody about this. And then last, but definitely not least, is fats. So, fats get a bad rep, but they are also crucial for absorbing some, fat vitamins. Vitamins need fat sources to be absorbed. So that's why some vitamins tell you to take them with a meal. In addition to that, they help protect the organs and they can be a backup source of energy. But something I forgot to listen here is that fats are also essential for hormone production. So if you fall below a certain threshold of fats in your diet, it can really mess with your hormones. And if your hormones are out of whack, your metabolism could be out of whack, your energy is out of whack, your mental state, your emotional state. So although, like I said, fats get a bad rap just because they're a little bit higher in calories, we'll go over that. They are still crucial for the physiological process of the body. And then one thing that we cannot forget about is micronutrients. So a lot of people talk about calories, macronutrients. Those are the two most important things. Yes, energy in versus energy out. But at the end of the day, getting your fruits and vegetables are just as important. They provide you with a lot of vitamins, minerals like calcium, iron, a lot of the physiological processes that we need, right? They support your immune system, bone health, blood health, heart health, nerve function. So do not forget that we need to incorporate some sort of vegetables and fruit. So anybody that works with me and has a meal plan, that we incorporate fruit and veggies. I give you guys the option because I don't want to force you to eat broccoli if you don't like broccoli. But at the end of the day, I'm a huge advocate of just kind of incorporating the rainbow, they call it. Get a wide variety, try different things, figure out what you like. I'm a huge fan of just about all vegetables at this point, just because I've tried everything. And honestly, just about every fruit too, because fruit is a God-given candy from nature, to be honest. All right, so when it comes to macros, right? This is an old slide I left in here, but portion control and mindful eating, we are getting more into portion control when we are doing macro calculation and tracking macros, or even just following a meal plan. We are controlling the portion size of our meals, the portion sizes of the amount of macros that we get in, and therefore controlling the amount of calories that we get in through the day. So this can be done using, an app like My Coach AI, which is what all my clients use, all you guys use. My Macros Plus is another kind of macro tracking app that exists for, I think, iOS and Android. And then MyFitnessPal is probably the biggest one in the game. They've been around the longest time. MyFitnessPal has a very large database, although they've put a lot of stuff behind paywalls, unfortunately, as they've gotten more popular. But it's still a really good option. So that is what you would use to track macros. And in my opinion, you can use these apps to kind of help build your meal plan as well. All right, here's some screenshots for that. And what I wanted to showcase here is like, as you can see the total calories for each meal in both MyFitnessPal and also My Coach, which actually gives you the macronutrient breakdown. I'm pretty sure behind a paywall, you can get that in MyFitnessPal as well. But this is what's going to be the most important thing is understanding the macronutrients and the total calories that you're getting in for each meal. So you understand what you're getting in for the day. And we'll go into that a little bit more here in a second. All right, so now that we got a little bit of background of what it is we're trying to control and understand, let's break it down. So counting calories, understanding how many macros to eat, what your macro should be, it is as simple as it's a bunch of formulas and understanding it comes down to the very basic of thermodynamics. It's the laws of physics. If you want to gain weight, you need to consume more energy than you burn. If you want to lose weight, you got to burn more energy than you consume. So the first step in understanding how many calories you need to be eating is how many calories should you eat to maintain where you're currently at. So whatever your goal may be, if you're trying to burn fat or, put on more muscle, get bigger, put on more size, you need to understand where you are currently at, right? We have our start state, our current state, and then we can decide from there which route we want to go with. So for maintenance calories, the formula can be a little complicated if we take into consideration age, gender. You can take into consideration a lot of numbers. At the end of the day, this is a very much simplified version of that, which works pretty well. And once again, no matter what formula you use, it ends up being an estimation. And even the most complicated formula is going to be an estimation because not everybody is built the same. Not everyone's metabolism is the same. If you took somebody who was the same exact as me, 27 years old, maybe just as active as me, exactly 270 pounds like myself, their metabolism could work completely different than mine. So what might work for me might not work for them. So just always remember that this is an estimation, okay? So you can use this very simple formula, your body weight, so 217 times 12 to 16. And what that scale is just your activity level. So if you're very, very sedentary, you have a desk job, you're not working out super often, you're not moving around, you're not getting many steps in. Even if you work out for an hour a day and then you just sit on your ass all day, that's still pretty low activity. So, this you would be on the lower range. If you are an athlete or you are working out really consistently, you're making sure to keep your activity level up really high, or you have a very manual labor, like intensive job, like construction or, roofing, something like that, then you would be on the higher end of the spectrum. Okay. Now, something really cool that you can also use is something like this, tdeecalculator.net. Now, this basically just takes the formula, I think a little bit more complicated formula, and makes it a web page for you. So this is a very easy way to do this. You literally just click on this. You put in your information, 07, 216. I'm going to say I do heavy exercise, right? And then if you know your body fat percentage, you can put that in there. And it just spits out my maintenance calories, okay? From there, it gives you some options on what you can do. I ignore everything else from there. All I get from here is maintenance calories because once again, it is an estimation and it totally depends on the person, okay? So once you have this maintenance calories, so for example here, uh-oh, I lost it. Okay, right here. We're gonna use myself as an example, Big Poppy, that's me, obviously. I'm 217 pounds.
I'm here to help you.
I consider myself very active. I'm lifting 5 days a week currently. I'm doing cardio 5 days a week, 30 minutes. And on top of that, I'm usually averaging between 10 to 15,000 steps per day. So because of that, if I wanted to use the simple formula, we're going to do 217 times 16, which is 3,470 calories. We're going to round up to 3,500 for the simplicity of my math. All right, which is pretty close to what we got here. Almost exactly the same. So this is why you can use either one. Oh man, I don't know how to get back to move that. Boom. Okay, we back. So yeah, we're gonna go with 3,500 calories, make it easier with rounding. So now we have our maintenance. This is our current state, guys. So this is what I calculated for every single one of you that are in this group, on this team. So we need to find current state. This is why I asked you guys, what's your current activity level? A lot of you, I ask if you're working out already, what are you doing? How active are you? What's your job? What's your lifestyle outside of the gym? We need to take all these things into consideration. And on top of that, reminder, It is an estimate, which is why it's important to make changes. It's important to do those weekly check-ins, and we'll dive into that. All right, so from there, now we need to decide what path we want to take. So, a lot of people want to cut weight. A lot of us are trying to lose body fat. So I went with that one to make it easier. But you can see here, to gain weight, you need to consume more calories than you burn. To lose weight, you need to consume less calories than you burn. Okay. And like I mentioned earlier, this is literally because of thermodynamics. It is impossible to create matter out of nothing. So, if you put on body fat because you're eating too much and you're not burning it off, so your body turns it into fat. Okay. And then vice versa, if you're super active and you're not eating a lot of calories, there's no calories to burn, so your body will use your fat sources to burn for energy. Okay. So for bulking, I recommend adding 250 to 500 calories on top of your maintenance. This is a bigger range, but it depends on the person. It depends on, once again, metabolism. Some people are what we call hard gainers. You can eat a lot of food, and a 250 calorie increase isn't going to do much. Sometimes we need to start a little bit heavier and go with 500. In addition to that, though, we need to take into consideration other things like your digestive health, your bloating. If you're not feeling it, if you already feel like you're force feeding yourself immediately, you probably did way too big of a jump. Now, a lot of people go into 1,000 to 2,000 calorie increases off rip, and that is probably the worst thing you can do, because let's say you do that big jump immediately, and immediately you start feeling like shit, and then guess what? Maybe you stall out in weight. You're gonna have to add more food on top of that, and you're just gonna feel even worse. So I'm a huge advocate of slow and steady always wins, especially to let your metabolism catch up and your digestive health to catch up. Now for cutting, same thing. Subtract 250 to 500 calories, right? And now we're going to go the opposite end of the spectrum. This is going to come down to, how hungry you are, how much you can adhere to it. You can do 1,000 calorie, calorie cut or 2,000 calorie cut and be absolutely starving. Are you going to be able to maintain this? Or are you just crash dieting? You're going to lose 15 to 20 pounds in a couple weeks, and then you're going to start binge eating because you're so hungry, right? We need to take all those things into consideration. So 250 to 500 calories is a really good starting point, and just go week by week and then change from there. So we'll go back to my example. So my maintenance, I forgot to round it here. Whoops. My maintenance, 3,500 calories. So I can either add 500 calories if I was bulking. So I'm going to round up to 4,000 for my bulking calories, or my cutting calories would be 3,000. And this is pretty much on the money, guys. This is where I'm at currently. I'm currently eating about 4,000 calories a day. So, and I've been gaining weight slow and steady. So this is pretty consistent with what's going on in real life. And I literally just did this math for the presentations, and it just worked out perfectly. All right, so now we have our total calories, okay? Total calories is the umbrella, and what makes up those total calories are the macronutrients that we spoke of earlier: proteins, carbs, fats. And that is because every single one of those macronutrients has a designated amount of calories per gram. So that's what we'll cover here. Very quick slide. Protein has 4 calories per gram. Carbs have 4 calories per gram as well. And then fats are a little bit higher, and they have 9 calories per gram. I included alcohol in here, which is 7 calories per gram. Put a little asterisk next to it because we'll talk about that later. And, I don't incorporate alcohol into anybody's meal plans, but we'll talk about that later. It's kind of a nuanced topic. So proteins, 4 calories, carb, 4 calories, and then fats, 9 calories. Now, how do we know how much of each one of those macronutrients that we should be incorporating into our day, right? So a lot of studies have shown that a minimum of 0.75 grams per pound of body weight is a good starting point to help you build muscle, maintain muscle, and you can go anywhere up to 1.5 grams per pound of body weight. Once again, as you've noticed, a lot of these things are based on a scale because it depends, guys. Nobody is perfect. What works for someone might not work for the next person. So the lower end of the scale can be used if you are, severely overweight, you do not have a lot of muscle, or just overall quite unhealthy. So if you're a little bit more on the obese side, it's going to be hard to get, a lot of protein in, especially if you're just starting out. So leaning towards that 0.75 will just make your life a little bit easier, right? And then as you get leaner, you can increase. Now, for most of the average population, 1 gram per pound of body weight is a totally good place to be. You're meeting the minimum requirement, plus a little extra doesn't hurt to help with recovery and potentially even build a little bit more muscle. Now, the 1.5 grams, it can really help with hunger. Protein takes a little bit longer to digest. It also just burns more calories to digest protein, which is why it takes longer. And on top of that, protein is very important for recovery, so it can help with soreness and just that, the delayed onset muscle soreness after workouts. Now, I did kind of add in here a little bro science that a lot of bodybuilders really believe that a higher protein diet can give you a better look, almost like a harder, muscular look. That's straight bro science. You can believe that if you want. I mean, there's no research behind that, but I put it in there. So we'll use myself as an example once again. I'm a very hungry dude. I was a fat kid my whole life, so like my appetite is through the roof, even while bulking. So I'm currently running 1.5 grams per pound of body weight. So I'm eating about 325 grams of protein. And the main reason for that is recovery and also because I can eat, man. So what we hope for is that that protein just helps me stay fuller longer and it can hold me over until my next meal. All right. All right, so next we're gonna do fats. And I always recommend going in this order, right? Figure out your proteins first. That's gonna be one of your most important things. And then figure out your fats because like I said earlier, we don't want to fall below a certain threshold because then it can really mess up our hormone production. So that threshold is 18 to 20% of our calories should come from fats. You can go higher than this, okay? But at a minimum, you need to be at 18 to 20% to ensure that proper hormone production. Now, as I say here, this is where things get a little nuanced again because it comes down to preference, guys. It really does. And this is why a lot of you who have been working with me know that we have a lot of conversation about, hey, do we want to increase fats? Do we want to increase carbs? What route do we want to take? What route will help you adhere to it the most, right? So we're using myself as an example. So I personally just prefer higher carb diets. So I usually will just keep fats at about 20%. And I really don't mess with fats. I don't change fats too much because I'm kind of at that minimum already. I don't want to reduce them anymore because I don't want to fall into that threshold. Now for fats, what happens is because we want the minimum to be 18 to 20%, what I do here is you can take your total calories for the day and multiply that by 0.18 to 0.2, which is 18 to 20%. And then we know that there's 9 calories per 1 gram of fat. So then you would divide this total number by 9 calories, giving you the grams of fat that you should eat in your diet. So here's my example, 3,500 calories. Like I just said, I like to do 20%. So multiply that by 20%, divide the total by 9, which gives me 78 grams of fat in my diet. Now I know that that is the minimum number of fats that I should be consuming for the day. If I look at it and I'm like, ooh, that might be a little too low because I really like cheese or I like egg yolks and I want to have more egg yolks and, maybe more dairy, then I can go ahead and increase that. Now, with that being said, it's all ratioed out. So if I increase my fats, my carbs have to come lower, right? So boom, let's talk about carbs. Now we save carbs for last because protein is priority and we want to make sure that our hormones are on point. Now that we have carbs, now that we're at carbs, we have our total calories for the day, 3,500 calories. We now know how much protein we want to be consuming. I think for me it was 325 grams. And we also know how many grams of fats we're eating, which was 78 grams. So what we do is we can allot the remainder of the calories that are left to carbs. Now the formula is going to be total calories, subtracting the calories from protein, and then subtracting the calories from fat. And that'll leave you how many calories you have left over. And we know that there's 4 calories per gram of carbs. So we'll just divide that remaining calorie number by 4. So I have 3,500 calories total. I did 325 grams of protein times 4 calories per gram, and then 78 grams of fat times 9 calories per gram. So doing this quick maths, we get about 1,500. So I have about 1,500 calories that I can allot to my carbs. And we also know from the previous slides that carbs have 4 calories per gram. So it's just as simple as taking this 1,500 number, dividing by 4, and it gives us about 375 grams of carbs. Now we have our protein, we have our fats. and we have our carbs. So we are set. We have our total calories as well. So we have everything that we need, okay? I put this in the wrong spot. It should be at the top. So here is what we have, right? 3,500 calories. And now what we can do is create a meal plan. I'm a huge advocate of creating meal plans, guys. I know some of you are just doing what is called flexible dieting, which is just kind of tracking your macros for the day. Even if you are doing this, I highly, highly recommend creating a plan, right? And it's exactly because of what it sounds like. It's a plan. It's a plan to help you succeed. Now, if you wake up every morning and you're just winging it, it just leaves a lot more room for error and a lot more potential to just not hit the goal that you're setting for the day. So I would recommend having some staple meals and then fitting in your fun foods when you can. But let's get into this. So the easiest way that I consider doing meal plans is going to be taking your total calories for the day and dividing by how many meals that you realistically can get in for the day. I'm currently eating 5 meals a day, so I'm looking at about 700 calories per meal. Okay, and then I can just further break that down for my protein, carbs, fats. Divide by 5, divide by 5, divide by 5. And this is my breakdown for each meal of that day. Will it be this picture perfect? No, absolutely not. Right. And then we also take into consideration, some people like to have big breakfasts like myself. So my breakfast is a little bit larger than my other meals. Or some of us are working out fasted, or some of us are working out very early in the morning, and it's going to be impossible to get a 700-calorie meal in at 4 in the morning. It totally depends on where you're at. The reason I like to implement 4 to 5 meals a day is because we want that metabolism, that digestive system working. We want you to have protein synthesis working throughout the day, and that is best case scenario. But once again, this is real life. We are not in a science experiment, so sometimes we just can't do that, right? Life isn't perfect. So at the end of the day, what's going to be the most important factor is going to be your calories in for the day, and then your macros for the day. So if you cannot get your meals perfectly aligned to be evenly distributed like this, that's okay. It's not going to kill your progress. What is going to kill your progress is not creating a plan for yourself and not consistently hitting the goals that you set for the day. That's what's going to kill your progress. So now that we have these goals that we have for each meal, truthfully, the easiest thing to do is to have kind of like a list, which I've actually linked here. A lot of you guys should have access to this. I'm going to send this out to everybody again. But this is just a common grocery list, right? You have, boom, I made this for you guys. Protein sources. These are some really good protein sources that I would recommend. A lot of these, the majority of these are going to be whole food sources and single ingredient food sources, the majority of them. Carbs, right? And fats. Now, what I would recommend if you're somebody who gets tired of eating the same thing, pull from this list every weekend, and I would say make yourself a menu or a meal plan on a weekly basis, and then you can change it up, or even maybe like a 3 or 4 day meal plan and then change it up. But if you're somebody like me, I'm very basic. I stick with the things that I know I enjoy eating. And another thing that we need to take consideration is things that I know digest well in my system, right? Chicken breast, turkey breast, I'm totally fine with. I do not like seafood, so that's out for me. Pork can upset my stomach, so I don't really eat pork anymore. Egg whites I'm good for. Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, not my favorite. If you're into it, go for it. So it's that simple, guys. Just make sure to choose foods that you can actually stick with. Try to stick with single ingredient whole food sources and break it down the best you can. All right. Now, especially if you're doing flexible dieting, a lot of people think that flexible dieting is all about eating whatever the hell you can. I would stick to the 90-10 rule, 90% clean food, 90% whole foods, 90%, single ingredient, 10% little sweet treat here and there to keep you mentally sane. Do you absolutely need it? No, not at all. But once again, we're all humans. So if that helps you kind of stay on track and kind of hits that sweet tooth craving, then go for it. Now, this is where this is probably going to be the most important thing, is how to manipulate this to continue to see progress. And a lot of you that have been working with me for a while, this is exactly what we do with check-ins, right? Here are our starting calories and macros, and then, weekly check-ins, guys. Body weight, progress pictures, how we're feeling in the gym. Are we hitting PERs? How are the pumps feeling? How is strength feeling? How is recovery feeling? How is energy feeling? All of this is greatly affected by the food that we eat, right? This is why when you eat really shitty, super processed foods, a lot of times you feel like crap after, your stomach hurts, it gives you no energy. Sometimes it even makes you sleepy. So this is where the check-ins are crucial. And on a weekly basis, I put daily in there. If you're the type of person that doesn't get scared by the number on the scale, you can weigh yourself every single day and take the average for the week. But I do know a lot of people just honestly hate looking at the scale. So a lot of times I'll keep it to weekly basis. Okay. If progress begins to stall, let's say that I'm 217, I'm trying to cut weight, right? And one week in, I drop a pound or two. 2 weeks in, I drop another pound. 3 weeks in, maybe half a pound. And 4 weeks in, like my weight starts to stall. My energy is like still feeling really good, but for some reason my weight is stuck. Okay, so this is where you can kind of manipulate something. Once again, the most important thing is calories in versus calories out. So either A, you can pull some calories from carbs, reducing about 15 to 25 grams of carbs, which comes out to be somewhere between 50 to 100 calories. Or you can increase your activity level by introducing more step count or introducing more cardio. And some manipulation of both is usually ideal, because if you just keep reducing food without changing your activity level, you're gonna fucking be starving. I mean, you're gonna be very minimal food before you're gonna blink and you're gonna be at 1,500 calories, and that's just not ideal, right? Because you know you just got to move more sometimes. So I like to incorporate a manipulation of both to have like that fun balance. It could go the other end of the spectrum. Hey, I really don't want to change my food. I want to keep it exactly where it is. Okay, that's fine. You can continue to eat 3,000 calories, but I need you to do an hour of cardio every single day, right? So find that happy medium, manipulate them, and see what works. And once again, you make it. I like to keep it pretty. Think of it as an experiment. I like to keep the variables to a minimum that are changed. So if we reduce carbs, we'll reduce some carbs on training days or rest days. Leave it at that. See what happens that week. Hey, if nothing happens, then we'll make another change. Or sometimes we need to ride it out and see how the body adapts after 2 weeks, and then go from there. Make another change, right? I wouldn't recommend reducing calories and bumping cardio up a bunch, because then we don't know which one actually affected the change, if that makes sense. All right. And then I think this is the last thing, maintaining progress. With that being said, some of you have been working with me for a while, so you've kind of witnessed this. And it's a little scary, especially if you're new to the game. As you continue to push your body, right? The human body is a crazy cool machine that is capable of so much when we push it to its limits. Okay. But at the end of the day, our body adapts to the stress. And when we produce too much stress, what happens is the body wants to stall it out, because the body wants us to survive. Once again, it's in bro science, they call it your survival state. What happens is your metabolism can start to slow down, especially if you're cutting weight. So if you're in a very long fat loss process, there may come a point where we need to introduce more refeeds, reverse diet, or even a diet break. Okay. And this is to give your metabolism a break. This is to give your metabolism a rest. The same way that we take rest days to give our muscles a break, sometimes your metabolism needs a little bit of a break to catch back up and start working properly to keep burning fat. And a lot of you already have refeeds incorporated in a way, by incorporating a cheat meal, which in a sense is just going to bump your calories and carbs up. Reverse diets. I think, Jordan, we went through a reverse diet. What can happen is, as you lose fat and you're building muscle, you're maintaining more muscle, you've kind of developed a new physique, and therefore your body has developed a new physiology. So it's at a different state. Maybe you're a lot more active than when you first started, and now you have a lot more muscle than when you first started. So technically, even though that your body weight may be a little bit lower, you could actually need more calories than we thought because you've built so much muscle or you've become so active. So what happens is we'll introduce a reverse diet, and instead of cutting, we hit our plateau here. Hey, let's rebound you back up to your new baseline, if that makes sense. So we'll slowly reverse and we'll increase calories until we start to see a little tick up in weight. And then we know, hey, this is about your baseline. Let's hover here for a second. This is your new maintenance, and then we'll go back down. Um, so yeah, and then a diet break is exactly what it sounds like. It's a diet break. You just take a week off, do your thing. A lot of times I recommend people use this on like a nice vacation or something. If you're going somewhere, just take a diet break, relieve the mental stress, relieve the physical stress, and all of a sudden, like you'll come back and you'll see massive weight drop for some reason as soon as you get back into the swing of things. And it's just because sometimes your body just needs that rest. I think Jordan, we saw this too when you came back from Iceland. So yeah, that is the end. I know that was a lot of information. Hopefully I covered everything pretty well. Is there any questions? Bro science, regular science, facts.
I have a question here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So hypothetically, what if training day and you don't hit your proper calories for that day? Should you chase those calories the following day, or should you take, I don't want to say take the L, but kind of move on and take
Mhm.
the next day as day one, or should you chase?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. So, truthfully, what's going to matter the most is the weekly average. Right? The day-to-day basis is very important, and that affects your weekly average, which is why we do weekly check-ins. And I would say, Darren, it comes down to how much. If it's a couple calorie, like a couple hundred calories, um, I would probably just take the L and move forward with it. Or if you notice that the next day you're feeling a little bit hungrier because you missed an entire meal or two, and it's not going to mess up your digestion, it's not going to kill you to get that extra food in, and you feel like you really need it, then go for it. You can make it up because at the end of the day, like I said, the weekly average is going to be the most important. So it kind of depends how crazy it is.
Got it. Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
How important would you say meal timings are?
Yeah, so meal timing is it can be very important, especially as you start to get leaner. The leaner you get, the hungrier you'll start to be. And that meal timing will just kind of work out perfectly, which is why I kind of do 5 meals. As you get leaner, typically every 2 to 3 hours is when you start to get hungry. So that can affect it. And then also, the one time that I truly am a believer of meal timing being important is your pre-workout meal, and then post-workout meal, maybe not as important, but still important. Pre-workout meal is going to be the most important if you're training with food in your system, because this is where we incorporate those easy to digest carbs and really give your body the fuel, the gas that it needs to absolutely fucking destroy a workout. Um, Meal timing throughout the day is, you know, protein synthesis, same thing, about 2 to 3 hours. What happens is your body's protein synthesis. So the way your body synthesizes protein and it's in a anabolic state, so a muscle building state, what happens is it goes into a peak, and then about every 2 to 3 hours, it starts to trough down again. So that's why bodybuilding, we incorporate, 4 to 5, maybe 6 meals a day, is as that starts to come down about hour 2 or 3, guess what? We're getting another meal in, so we're peaking it back up. So we're trying to stay in an anabolic state. With that being said, I understand life isn't perfect. I try my absolute best to get those meal timings in. And what you'll notice is, once again, as you get leaner, your digestion metabolism starts to catch up. It just works out a little bit better. But I know it can be a little bit harder when we have very busy lives. So I would say just try your absolute best. And if I had to prioritize one meal timing, it would be my pre-workout meal.
All right. Thank you.
Of course.
And I'll follow up on that. I work out in the morning around like 5:30 a.m.
Mhm.
So for me, like I think we've talked about it previously as well. Um, Getting a full breakfast in is difficult
Yep.
because, as you can see, getting up and stuffing your face may not be ideal. So what I have been doing is just doing like a tablespoon of honey, um, mixed with, or sorry, like a tablespoon of honey with like either a date or some sort of like a natural sugar
Yeah.
carb combo, to sort of just get that spike and go work out. It's been working. It's been giving me some energy.
Good.
So, but I also don't try to like eat something that's gonna like increase my calories significantly, you know.
I would say I think you're in the right spot. So Darren also works out really early, and that's what we incorporate is like a banana and honey. Just try to
Yeah.
get some really quick and easy digesting carbs in to get something in your system.
Yeah.
Um, and then I would say prioritize your post-workout meal then at that point, right? Make sure you get
Yeah,
plenty.
and that's just my breakfast.
Yeah. Okay. Then yeah,
Yeah.
man, I think you're in a good spot. We definitely still need to take into consideration depending on how much you're getting in. And the cool thing is like you can manipulate that honey, banana, dates, whatever, to maybe get a couple more in and really just get some extra carbs in before your workout because that's where it's going to be most
Yeah.
important.
All right. I think that's it for me.
Good
Thanks.
questions, dude. I like this.
What are your thoughts on energy drinks? And I only say this because I love energy drinks and I like how they get focused, but I will say they curb my appetite.
Yeah.
Do you have any stances on them or find ones that maybe don't give you that same effect?
Yeah, so with energy drinks and appetite, it's the caffeine in it. So caffeine is a natural appetite suppressant. Um, and so whether you're doing energy drinks or you have coffee or you even do caffeine pills, a lot of times you'll find that it curbs that appetite. I'm an advocate for energy drinks. I think it's about finding that balance, and really like how long is it curbing your appetite? Is it curbing it for a while?
Um, yeah, I because my habit is that I'll have it around maybe like 10 o'clock
Yeah.
and I look down and it's like 1:30 and it's like, oh man, like I haven't had lunch yet. And then it backs up my like mid-afternoon snack at that point, right?
Yeah.
So it starts putting you behind the eight ball by a couple hours.
Yeah, so I would say, Darren, like a really good tip that has helped me in the past, is set a timer on your phone because at that point it might just also be you're just really focused, and when we're focused on something, we just forget about the existence of everything else.
Mm,
So, caffeine does curb the appetite. Smash it at 10 o'clock and see what happens if you set an alarm for 12. Take a quick lunch break, or even just eat at your desk and work while you eat. Um, and go from there because that's when it'll start to get hard as you're bulking. Because if you miss a meal, like you said, then you got to make up for it
right.
later in the night. So
Yeah.
I would definitely try that. Set an alarm. And that's a tough one, right? Because if it's truly like, oh my God, I feel like I'm force feeding myself, my appetite is gone, then we might need to take into consideration maybe something else away from caffeine that can help with energy. But if it's just like, oh, I lost track of time and I missed a meal, I would set a reminder on your phone and see how that helps.
Cool. I'll give that a shot.
Hell yeah, guys. Really good questions.